Okay, so now it's time to build in our user's inbox and the ability to message each other. So we're going to start by building out the message model, and then we're going to render out some messages into this inbox page here once we add that. So we're just going to go into the admin panel, manually create some messages, and then we're going to build in the functionality to actually write messages and then read them. So let's go ahead and start building this out. So we're going to go into the users model here, or the users app, into models.py. And we need to start by adding this to the database. So let's go ahead and create our class here. This is going to be class, and that'll be message. This is inheriting from models.model. And let's go ahead and set the first attribute. So the first one is going to be a sender. So this is going to be the person sending the message. So models.foreign key, we want to connect this to a profile. So we'll just do profile, and we are in the users models.py file. So it's right here. We can connect to that, and then we just want to set null here, or not set null, but we want to do on delete. So on underscore delete, we want to set this to null. So if I send a message to someone and I delete my account, I want the recipient to still see that message. I don't want that to go away. They should have a record of it. So we'll just set that to null. Now the null value for the database, this should be set to true because users that don't have an account can send messages. So we won't always have a sender attribute here. So we'll just do blank here, and then that'll also be true. So a form can be submitted without a sender. And what I mean by without a sender, we're always going to have somebody sending it, but if they don't have an account, we're just not going to have that profile relationship. They'll just be required to add in their name and email. So let's go ahead and add a recipient now. So we'll just do recipient, and the recipient is going to be the person getting this email. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and connect this to a profile too. So we can just copy and paste this right here. So we'll throw that in, and we need to do something a little bit different for the recipient because in this case, the recipient connection to the profile is going to interfere with our sender. So in this case, after blank here, we're just going to say related underscore name, and that's going to be messages. So when we go to the profile, to access the profile's messages, instead of doing something like profile.message underscore set, we're just going to be able to type in messages. So this is how that profile model is going to connect to this. So we need to add this to one of these at least, because if we don't, then it will not allow us to have a connection to the profile model twice. So we won't know how to actually connect to it. So we need to add in a related name. So after our related name, let's go ahead and always get the string value of the user. So regardless of whether there was a profile here or not, we always want to get the user. So this is going to be models.charfield, or we always want to get that user's name. So we just want to store that. So that's going to be charfield, and then we're going to set max underscore length, and I'll just set that to 200. I think that's a good value. And we're going to set null to true and blank also to true here. Okay, so we have the name, then we want to get the email. So we'll just go ahead and copy all this, and we'll just do email. And in this case, I'll just do model.email field. And then we want a subject, so I'll just copy the name again, take that here, and then we'll just do subject. So the subject line of an email or a message here. And then we want the body. So the body here is going to be a text field. So we'll just do body. That's going to be models.text field. And this right here cannot be blank. So we don't want anybody sending a message to anybody without some kind of values in there. So we won't set this. That's by default going to be set to false. And then after this, we just want the created value and we want the ID. So I'll just go to the skill model. We'll just copy all of this here, and let's just paste this below. So created and ID. So those are going to be the same, consistent throughout all the models here. So I just want to add in a string value. So let's go ahead and set that. So we'll just do str. We'll pass in self here. And the return value is just going to be, let's see, I think we can just do the subject. So let's do that. So we'll do self.subject. And then we'll change this if we need. Now, I also want to order messages by default. So when a user opens up their inbox, they should see their unread messages first. So let's just go ahead and actually add that value. I forgot to add that. So basically any message that you haven't opened up yet, we want to make sure that that's at the top. So we'll just create another attribute, and that's going to be called is read. So did this user read this message? Has anybody seen it? So for this, we're just going to do models.boolean field. So a boolean is simply a true or false value. And in this case, the default is going to be false. So if the message was just sent, it obviously has not been read. So by default, when created, it's going to be false. And we're going to set the no value to true. So now what I want to do here is set the ordering. So all messages that are unread need to be at the top. So we'll just do class and then meta. And we can just set the ordering value. So ordering, and this is going to be a list. And in here, we're going to set this by is_read. So this is going to be, I believe, in ascending order. If it doesn't work, if anything, we'll just invert it like that. But I think this means that all the false values will be at the top. So we're just basically inverting it. And then after that, we also want to order the messages by the created value. So for this, we're just going to invert that and we'll just do created. So any message that's not read will be at the top, and then this goes in order actually. So it'll first do this and then created messages. The newer created messages will be at the top. So that's it for the model. Let's go ahead and run our migration. So I'll save all this, open up my terminal here, and let's just open up another one. So I'll just do python manage.py, make migrations, and then we'll migrate that. So python manage.py, migrate, and that should apply those migrations. So I also want to register this with the admin panel. So we're going to create a few messages manually here. So we'll go into the users app, and then in admin.py, I just want to import message or the message model. And we just want to register that. So let's just copy one of these right here, and we'll just change this to message. And now that's registered. So let me just take a look at that really quick in the admin panel, make sure it's all working. And now we see messages, so that looks good. So if I click on this, we can write a message, we can add a sender, a recipient, and that all checks out. So before we actually start adding some messages, I want to add in the template here. So in our resources folder, we'll open this up again. In here, we are going to have a file here inside of dev search theme, and this is going to be the inbox here. So if I open this up, this is what our inbox is going to look like. So we'll add this in, and then we're going to render out some real data. So we'll close it here. Let's go ahead and copy inbox. So I'll copy that, minimize this, and then we'll go into our Django project. And this is going into our users app into templates here. So I'll just paste that in here. And now we want to create the view to render that. So let's see, let's close out the models. We'll go into users, views here, and we're obviously going to have to customize that theme. So make sure it all takes in the static files that we need and so on. So those are all connected. So down inside of our view, we want to create an inbox route now. So we'll go ahead and create a new function. So we'll just create the function here, and this is going to be called inbox here. So inbox, take out the Z there, and this is going to take in request. And we want to return render, and then we'll just render out that template. So I also want this to be a login required decorator, or to have a login required decorator. So we want to paste that above here, so above our inbox. And let's just quickly do that for the delete skill. I realized we don't have that over delete, so we want users to be logged in if they're deleting a skill. So in the render method, we'll just do request, and then we're going into users, and then /inbox.html. So we just added this template. So it's in our users app here in templates. So we're passing that in, and I also want to pass in the context dictionary right now. So we'll just do context, and we want to set that right here. So context, make that an empty dictionary. Okay, so we have the view, and let's go ahead and actually render out the template. So we'll go into URLs here, or actually set that here. So inside of our URLs, let's create another path here. So we'll just do path, and this is going to be to inbox here. So inbox / and then we'll just set the view. So views.inbox, and then the name will also be inbox. So we'll just set name. Okay, so we have the URL path, and we have the view in the template, and now I want to render this out. So to render it out, we'll go into our navigation bar. So in the root directories template folder, I want to link this up here. So it's called inbox here. That's the name of it. Make sure everything's saved and also the view. And we'll go into navbar.html. And we want to make sure that a user is authenticated before they can see it. So we're going to take this right here. Let's remove it or copy it. And then we'll go in here and we'll only render it out if a user is authenticated. So the route here will point to login. So we'll just do URL and we're going into inbox, or not login, but we're pointing to inbox. So I need to wrap that in a quote here, mess this one up here. Let me fix that. And that should do. So let's see what we have so far. So I'll open up my page here, go to the home page. So now if I'm logged out, so let me log out really quick. We won't see the inbox. And now if I log in, we see the inbox here. So if we go to inbox, we're not seeing any of the styling. So at this point, all we did was just output that template. We didn't configure it. So we actually need to open that up and fix up a few things here. So we'll close out the navigation bar, and we also don't need the URL. So we'll go into our users app and into templates here, and we can go into login.html. So it's a simple HTML file. We have all this extra stuff. So we don't need the HTML tag or the doc type. That's already in our theme. We don't need the head tag right here. And we also don't need the header tag, so we can get rid of all of this. And let's go down to the closing section and let's delete HTML and body. So if I go to the top here, we have everything from our main tag, and I guess we can get rid of this body section too. So basically our opening and closing main tags. Now to actually get all the static files configured and everything configured with that theme, that is all connected in our main template. So we'll just do extends here, and then we're going into main.html. Then we just simply need to wrap all this content inside of block tags. So we'll just do block content. And then we just need to close that up here. So under the main tag, we'll just wrap everything, end, block, and then content. Okay, so if I refresh this, we should see our navigation bar and the styling should actually be there. So let's go ahead and refresh it. If it doesn't work for you, do Control-Shift-R, and that should do it. So at this point, we have some messages here, and these are not dynamically rendered. So let's actually go into our database and let's create a few messages. So the first message is going to go from Sam Piper to Dennis. So I'm logged in as Dennis. All the messages will have Dennis as the recipient. So I'll zoom in if you can't see this. And we are always going to have a name. So we'll just do Sam Piper. And even if a user doesn't have to enter this, we'll just make sure that the form on submission will actually add this in. So for now, we'll just do this manually. So we'll just do sam@email.com. And then subject, we'll say first message. And then for the body, let's just do some lorem ipsum text. We'll just do lorem ipsum. And we'll just take one of these down here. So just some text from here, and that'll be the message. Now is read by default is going to be set to no. So we'll leave that. And then we want to send another message also to Dennis, or the recipient needs to be Dennis. And this is going to be from John Doe. Okay, so we'll just do John@email. Wow, I can't write it. So we'll just do John@email.com. Okay, so the message here, we'll just say, how are things going? And for the actual content, let's just take another paragraph here. So we'll just grab something else, and that's going to be it. So in this one, what I'm going to do is set is read to true. So we are going to have read messages and unread messages. So if your message has been read, if a user already opened it, it's going to be bolded like this, or it's going to be at the bottom here. But any new messages or unread messages will be at the top here. So you can see the difference here. So that's what I'm trying to show you. So we manually added some messages. And now what I want to do is just render these out and add in those conditions. So we'll go into our views.py. The first thing we want to do is import the message model. So we'll go in here. Let's see, inside of models, and we'll just import message. And then down in our inbox, we can get all of those. So the first thing we'll want to do is get the currently logged in user. So we need to get their profile, so we can just access request.user, and then we can go into profile. And after that, we can get the messages by just doing message request here. And make sure you call this something other than just messages. Now, the reason for this is because we imported our Flash messages here. So if we call it messages, the name is going to conflict with this, and we just need to make sure that we have a different value. So do not call it messages, anything other than that. So we'll get our messages here. So we just called it message request. And in here, we are just going to go into profile dot messages dot all. So the reason why we're going into messages instead of message underscore set was because of models.py. So in here, for our recipient, so at this point we are getting the recipient's messages, we are going into the related name. So that's why. So this name right here, if we had both of these values set to profile, then it wouldn't know which one to get. So one of these had to be renamed. So in this case, we called it messages. So from now on, in order to get a profile's messages, as in the messages sent to this owner or to this profile, we just go to messages like that. So profile.messages.all. Now we also want to get the count of unread messages. So we'll just do unread. And this is going to be, so unread count. And we're going to set this to message requests. And then we'll just do dot filter. And then this is going to be is underscore read. So we're accessing this attribute. And if is read is false, then we just want to go ahead and get that query set, and we'll just do dot count. So we're going to get that number of the amount of unread messages. Now we can go into message request, and let's pass this into the context dictionary. So we'll just copy and paste that here. So the key value pair, and then we can just do unread count. So I'm just camel casing these. So it's a capital C and a capital R. And then we'll just do the same for this right here. So we'll pass that in. And now these are going to be available in our template. So we just passed all of that in. Now let's go ahead and go into our inbox. And the first thing I want to do is pass in the unread count. So we have new messages and we have the number of new messages. And those are going to be the unread messages. So we'll just do unread and then count. So if I save that, we should only have one unread message at this point. So we can see one message was unread, and then we also want to pass in the actual messages. So let's see, we have our messages list, and in messages we have li tags. So it looks like each message is going to be a list item. So what we want to do is go ahead and get rid of the bottom two. So we'll go into here, get rid of these, and now we just want to loop through our query set. So inside of that UI tag or UL tag, let's go ahead and do for message in message request. So for message in message request, and then we just want to do an end for. So we'll do end for, and then add in that percent symbol there. And we want to output the actual message. So we'll go in here, and this is why I want that hard-coded value, because if a user is not actually attached to a message, if it was sent by an unauthenticated user, we want to be able to actually output that string value here. So in this case, we'll just do message.name. Let's see, how did I have that? So it's kind of weird to say message.name, but it's supposed to be like a sender name. But for now, I just call the name. That works for us. So message name, and then we'll copy this right here. And then for the subject, we can just do message.subject. And then for the last one, we'll just do message.created. And if anything, we'll format this. So we'll just do message created, save that, and let's see what we get. So if I open this up, we'll refresh it. Here we go. So now what I want to do is actually output messages as read and unread. So if you read a message, it should show differently. So if you opened it, and if you didn't, then it'll show up not bolded, or it'll show up bolded. So for this, all I need to do is change the class here to the li tag here. So what we'll do is just wrap this li tag, and we'll just write a condition. And there's different ways of writing this condition. In this case, I'll just output two different opening li tags. So we'll write the question here. So we'll just say if message dot is underscore read. So if somebody read that message, or if is read is equal to false actually. So we'll just do it this way. So if they haven't read the message, then we want to output this li tag. So it'll be unread like that. So that class bolds the message. Now I'll just add in the end if statement. Let's close this up really quick. So we'll just do end if, and then we also want an else statement. So we'll just do else, And I'm just going to copy this. And again, I could have written it in line inside of this li tag, but I just feel like for tutorials, it gets a little bit messy. So we'll just do it this way. So now we can get rid of that right there. So if the message is read, we'll have the class of unread. And if it is read, then it'll just be the standard class. So let's see what that looks like in the template. So I'll refresh that. And okay, so it broke something here. Let's see what's going on. So let's go back into the template. So if message is read as false, we output this one. Oh, it looks like this one has a closing li tag. I don't know how that happened. So I think it just auto completed it. So let's give that another test here. And there we go. So Sam Piper, this one is unread and this message is read. So now what I want to do is actually add in the link to read a message. So once we click on it, that's when it's going to be marked as read. So we want to create a page for that inbox or for the actual message and have the ability to read read and unread messages. So for this, we also have a template. So in the resources folder, inside of the dev search theme, we should have a message.html file. So it should look like this. So we're just going to paste this in, we'll modify the template, and then we'll link it up. So let's go ahead and go into that message.html file. Let's copy that. And I'm just going to close this out, open up my Django project, and we're going to paste that into our users app, into templates, users, and into the templates folder, into the users app. So let's go ahead and actually style that too. So we'll go ahead and close out our models and we'll find that template. So in the users app, we have the message.html. So with this, we'll start at the bottom. Let's remove the body tag and the HTML tag. So we're keeping the main tag. And then we can go up here. Let's take everything from the head tag all the way to the top and remove it. So just the main tag. Now we'll just extend the main template. So all repetitive stuff now. So extends here. Let's throw that in. That's going to extend main.html. We need the block tags. So we'll wrap all the content, block content, and then we can just do end block around the main tag, the closing main tag here, end block content. Save that. And we also need a view now. So we have the template, we'll modify the contents inside. So we'll go into views.py, and this is going to be our actual message here. So underneath our inbox here, we'll just go ahead and create a new function-based view, and we'll just say view message, pass in request. I want to make sure a user is authenticated, so we'll just pass in that login required decorator, and we'll just do return render, and we are going to render out or throw in a request to render, and then we're going into users/message.html, and we also want to pass in the context dictionary, so we'll create that. Context, set that to the empty dictionary, and we need the URL. So we'll go into URL, let's copy inbox, and let's just change this to message. So just like that, this will be what I call that actually. So view message, so we're camel casing that, and then the actual name will just be message. Okay, so now we have the URL, the view, and the template for the message. We want to link it up to our inbox. So as we're outputting each message, we have this link around it. So we can click on it. And this is currently pointing to message.html. And now I want to actually use a URL tag here. So we'll just do URL, and we want to send this to the particular message. So in this case, I also need to pass in an ID. So we'll just do message.id. And I forgot to add this to the URL here. So we just need to go ahead and add that. So let's add in a closing /, 2 angle brackets, and then the str, and we'll just say PK. So we're going to pass that into the URL. And that means we need to get this inside of the view here. So we need to pass that. And now that should link it up. So let's see what we have. So if I go to the page here, if I refresh it, if I go to a message, we can now read messages. It's not the actual message just yet. We have to change the contents, but that looks good. Okay, so that checks out. Let's go ahead and actually retrieve the message and modify the data. So we'll go back into our view, and in the view, the first thing we want is the profile. So we'll do profile. That's going to be set to request.profile, not require, request.user.profile. And then once we get the profile, we want to query the profile itself to get the messages. So we want to make sure that users can't access someone else's message by just accessing that primary key. So we'll just do message, and this is going to be set to profile.messages. So remember, we're using messages again here because that's the related name. And then we'll just do .get, and we'll just pass in the ID as the primary key. So we're just getting the message based on the URL, and we want to output this into the template now. So we'll just go ahead and pass that in here. And there we go. So that's going to be in our template. Now in the actual template, let's open up message.html, and let's just modify this. So the first thing is I want to update that back button. So the back button is going to send the user back to the inbox. So instead of inbox.html, we're going to send the user to URL and then inbox. And for the subject here, we can modify this. So we'll say message.subject. And then for the date created, we'll update this. Message.created. And then we want the name of the user who sent this. So we'll just do message.user or message.name. And we also want the body. So in this case, we'll just get rid of everything inside of the message body. And we also want to make sure that there are some line breaks here. So we'll just do message.body, and we can use the pipe here, and we can do line breaks and then BR like that. So that's going to ensure that the line breaks are actually added. So let's try this. We'll go into the message. Let's read this one. Let's see, profile has no object message. So I must have forgot the S there. So messages like that. So let's try this, refresh it. Okay, so there we go. We have the first message, and for some reason the body doesn't look like it's being output. So did I forget the attribute here? Let's see, we'll go into models.py, message.body, and I thought I added something. Maybe I just added that as the subject. So let's just check this in the admin panel. So first message, we see a body. Yeah, so it's there, and let's actually add some spacing so we can see that take effect here. So I'm going to save that, and let's figure out what's going on here. So we'll go back into the template. I got the message, so I know I have that successfully output. Oh, message.body with the Y. So we added the line break, so now we should see that. We'll go in here, refresh that. That's the first one. If I go back to the inbox, John Doe, and now we see that space here. Okay, so the space is actually in this one. Okay, so now I just want to make sure that when I read a message and then I go back, this message is actually marked as read. So for this is actually going to be very simple. All we're going to do is go into the views, and we'll go into the message itself here. And when a user opens this up, we're just going to do message.is_read, and we can set this to true. And then we'll just do message.save. So every time a user opens this up, we'll simply save it, and that's it. So message.save. And I just want to write a condition so we're not calling the save method every single time. We'll just say if message.is_read is equal to false. So it only will call it one time. So we can also add in like a date read. Whoops, didn't want to do that. So we can also add in like a date time when this message was read. So when the user opened it, all you would do is add in another attribute, and it would be like date read, and then we can modify that here. So we won't do that right now, but that's something that should be pretty simple to do. Just wanted to give you an idea, so maybe you can build that in. So we're updating the message here, and let's go ahead and refresh this. So now if I open up this message, that save method should be called, and let's click on back here. And now the message is marked as read. So now we don't see it. So if a new message comes in here, we'll just say recipient is going to be Dennis. Name is going to be, we'll just do Peter. I'll think of another name. So we're not going to have a sender, recipient is Dennis. We'll do peter@email.com. And we'll just say yo and say, how are you? Okay, so we're sending this message. New one comes in as read, and we can see that we have one unread message. If I read it, go back, now we have 0 unread messages. So now we are able to see our inbox, view the messages, read the contents of them, and update them. So the next thing I want to do is actually create a form to create messages. So if I go to a profile, at this point, I am logged in as Dennis here. So if I go to my profile, if I go to projects or developers and Dennis, I want to make sure that if I'm on my own profile, I can't send myself a message. So once we're done, we're going to hide this when you go to your own profile. But if we're on anyone else's profile, like if I go to John Doe, we can see that button. So that button will be hidden on your own profile, and we'll do that at the end. So now, for now, when we go to someone's account, when we click on send message, we want to see a form. So let's start building this in. So the first thing I want to do is create some kind of template. So let's do that. We'll start with that instead of the model form, and we'll go in here. And let's see, this is going to be message form. So we'll just go into templates. And then this is going to be message underscore form.html. And we'll just go ahead and extend the default content. Actually, what I'm going to do is go into my root directories templates folder. And I have that form template. We're just going to use this. So if you don't have it here, we've done this a bunch now. Go into the resources folder, into dev search theme, and get that form template. Okay, so just make sure you grab that. And I'm just gonna grab everything from the main content to the closing main content or tag, and that's in form template. And we're gonna paste this into our message form. So I'm gonna paste this in, and then we're just gonna wrap everything. So we're first gonna extend the main template. So we'll just do extends, and this is main.html. What did I do here? So extends like that. And we want to wrap this content, and then we'll modify it. So we'll just do block content. If this is getting annoying to you at this point, I guess that's a good thing. That means that you understand it well. So we'll just keep doing it as long as we need, because that's what a website like this takes. It's a lot of repetitive stuff. So we have the template, and in our main tag, we have block content, we have our form. And for now, let's just go ahead and remove this input field. Let's remove the second one, and we'll just leave one here because this is the one that we're going to iterate through and actually output. And we have our button here. So the method is post, the back button here. Let's just send this back to the user's profile. So let me think about this. So for now, I guess we'll leave it blank. So let's just leave it like that. And we'll take care of this probably in the view where we redirect a user. So I won't manually set it. We're going to leave that as blank. So if a user submits it, it'll send it to the same URL. And we have the post method, so everything looks good. So our form is ready, or the form template. So now I'll go into users, we'll go into view, and we are going to create the create message view. So down here, we'll create another function. We'll just do create message. We'll camel case that, pass in request. We want to make sure that a user is, well, no, actually we want any kind of user to be able to create a message, so they don't have to be logged in. So we'll leave that out. So we have create message now, and we'll just do return render, and we'll pass in request, and we'll throw in users / form or message underscore form.html. Then we'll throw in context, set the empty context dictionary, and now we have a view. So we have a create message view, and this view will simply render our template, and then when we send data, it'll process the message. So now we can go into our URLs. Let me close message.html in the inbox, so we don't need that. And let's just create a new path here. So we'll just do path. This is going to be called create or send message. Let's do that. Send dash message. Okay, so that's going to be a / here, and then let's go ahead and do views dot create message. So we'll call it create message then. So create message. And then we also want a name here, so we'll just do name, and this is going to be create dash message, and we want to add in that closing comma there. And for the actual create message, we want to know which account this message is being created for. So we want to know where we're sending this. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and add in that primary key. So str, and then we'll do pk / and now we have a URL. So to actually link this up here, we'll go into a profile. So inside of the users app, templates, we'll go into profile, user dash profile. And let's see, so we want to find that message button. So it's under our social links here, and we have this send message button. So in here, we'll create that URL. So let's go ahead and do URL, and this is going to be create dash message. Then we want to add in that user's profile ID, so profile.id. So that's how we know who to send this to. So we're passing that in the URL here. This needs to go to the view, so we want to throw that in here, so primary key. And let's see what we have so far. So if I go ahead and open this up, go to a profile. So I guess I can refresh this one. If I go to send message, let's see, message form does not exist. So let's go back in here and let's see what's going on. So we have users message underscore form.html. In the templates here, we have message form. Did I not add that in the correct template? I thought I added that. Where did we set it? So I may have added that in the root directories. Yeah, so into the templates in the root directories folder is where I added the message form. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to the Django project. We're going to go into the templates folder. Let's copy message form, and let's go back into users, templates, users, and paste that in here. And then I'll just go back into the root directories templates folder and delete message form. So put that in the wrong area. That happens quite a bit. So now if I refresh it, here we go. So this is our message template. And if I go back, that should take me to the current user's profile. So let's link up that back button. So we can close this one out. That's the one we just deleted. So we're just going to say don't save. And let's go into our users app now and into message form. So this back button right here will simply go to the recipient. So we're just going to create our URL tag, and then we need to configure a few more things. So we'll just say URL, and we're going to user dash profile. So that's what we called it. And then we need to pass in the recipient ID. So we'll just do recipient .id. So that means that we need to pass in a recipient into the message form. So if we go back to the views, we have our primary key, so that's going to be the recipient. So let's just do recipient, and this is going to be set to profile.objects.get. So we're just going to get it by the ID, and that's going to be set to the primary key, and we need to pass this recipient into the context dictionary now. So we'll just go ahead and take this recipient, paste them in here, and then pass that through the template. Now we have the recipient, so we know when we send this data, we know exactly where to redirect the user. So not where we send the data, but where we redirect the user. So if I go to that page now, let's try this again. So we're going to get this ID. So if I go back, now we know to go to the user's profile. So if I go to developers, go to John Doe, send message, back. Okay, so that looks good. So let's continue with that GET request or that POST request. So for this, we're going to build out our model form so we can actually send this. So inside of the users app, we'll go into forms, and we want to create a model form for our message. So we'll just do message. We'll import that into forms.py, and let's just go ahead and create a new model form. So we'll do class, and we'll just say message form. This is going to inherit from model form, and then we'll set class meta. We need the model. That's going to be message. And we also need the fields, so we'll just do fields. And for this, we're just going to create the list here. So we want to output the name. We want to output an email. Then we want to output the actual subject. So subject. And let's see, we also want to output the body. So body like that. Okay, so for the actual fields to style them, we're just going to take this super method right here, or this init method, and we're also going to add in that class of input to all the fields. So we just want to style this. So paste it in, make sure the indentation is correct. Then let's make sure to change this to message form. So message form. Okay, wow, why can't I uncapitalize that? Okay, so message form. Then we're going through each iteration of this and adding input here. So if I save this, now we have a message form. So let's go into our views and let's just bring this out here. So we'll just go into forms, Now we're outputting message form, pass that into our views, and we can get that now inside of our create view or create message view. So in here, let's just get the form. So we'll just do form, and that's going to be message form. And before we actually finish up this with the post request here, I want to do a few things in the template. So we're passing in the form, and in the form, instead of just looping through and outputting this data, what I want to do is make sure that content changes depending on whether the user is logged in or not. So the first thing I want to do is pass in the CSRF token because we are sending a post request. So we'll do CSRF_token. We'll pass that in here. And then I want to check if the user is authenticated to decide whether we want the name and the email field, because if we already have those values, we don't need to ask a user for that if they're logged in. So we'll just do if request.user.is_authenticated. So if the user is authenticated is equal to false, so this means that we have an unauthenticated user. Let's go ahead and output some different fields here. So we'll just do end if here. Let's close this up here. So end if. So what we want to do is take this form value, so this form field, and we'll throw that in here. And if the user is not authenticated, so this is what it's doing, it's checking if this value is equal to false. That means the user is not authenticated. Let's just output some fields here. So we'll just go ahead and we'll just do form.field or form.name.label. So we're just outputting the label. So before we were looping through, so we're able to do field.label, but at this point we're not going to loop through it. We're going to output each value individually. So we're going to request the user for the name, then we can change this input value, and we'll just do form.name like that. So that's how we can output values individually. So if a user is not authenticated, we also want to ask them for their email. So let's take this and put this down here, and we'll just do form.email, and this will be form.email. So we want their name and email. Now the rest of the fields are okay if a user is not authenticated. So we'll just take these values, and then outside of this if statement, so end if right here, let's just continue with this, and we just want to get the subject. So we'll just do subject, and then this is going to be form.subject, and then we want the body. So let's just copy this, paste this down here. So outside of the end if statement, and we'll just say body. Okay, so these two fields will only be output if the user is not logged in. So let's try this out now. So if I save this, let's go ahead and open up our page here. And if I go to send message, we only see subject and body. Now if I log out, and if I go to a developer, so we'll go to John Doe, send message, now we see name, email, subject, and body. So if you're not authenticated, these fields will be required. So let's actually process this. So let's go back into the view now. We'll close out forms.py. We don't need our URLs, and we don't need our user profile for now. And in here, let's see what we want to do. So we have our form. We're going to send a post request. So it's a post method. We have our token. When we send this, we first want to check if we have a sender. So let's go ahead and we'll write a try catch here. So we'll just do try, and then we'll do sender, and we'll just do request.user.profile. So if the sender does not exist here, so we'll just do .profile. We're going to try getting it. If he doesn't, then we'll just do accept, and then sender will be equal to none. So this means that the user is not logged in. And I guess we could have tried and said if user is authenticated, but this works too. So we'll just do a try accept here. So it's either none if the user is not logged in, and we do get a user if they are. So after this, now we just want to get that post request. So we'll just do if request.method is equal to post. Let's go ahead and process this form. So we're going to say form, and this is going to be equal to message form. Then we want to pass in request.post. And once we pass that in, let's go ahead and say if form.is_valid. So we just want to make sure all the data is valid in that form. We want to use that commit false method again in here. So if the form is valid, let's go ahead and say message is going to be equal to form.save, and then we'll just do commit, and this is going to be equal to false. So we want to do this to attach a sender and a recipient. So in this case, we're just going to do message.sender. So message.sender, and this is going to be equal to sender. So this is either going to be the person that sent it, or it's going to be equal to none. So we can have two options here. So we have the message.sender, we want to attach that, and then we want to attach the recipient. So we'll just do recipient, and this is going to be the user that we're sending this to. So we already have this. So in this case, we have the recipient right here. So we'll just do the recipient is, not the receiver, but recipient is going to be who we're sending it to based on the ID. So we set the sender and we set the recipient. And remember, this can be none. So after that, the reason why we want to check this sender is we want to be able to access this here. So we'll just do if sender, then let's go ahead and actually assign some values. So what happens here is if a user is not logged in, let's open up the form. If a user is not logged in, they're going to provide their name, email, or their name and email. If they are not logged in, so if we sign in, then the user will not actually see the name and email. So that means that data won't be sent. So we'll just need to manually send the name and email and attach it. So in this case, we're just going to get the name and email from the actual sender here. So now that we have a sender, so this means the user is logged in, we'll just say message.name because that is not sent in the form. So we'll do message.name, and this is going to be sender.name. And then we can do message.email, and that's going to be sender.email. So we just wanted to update these, and then we'll go ahead and jump out of this if statement. So now we are in this if statement. So here we'll just do message.save. So we just updated the sender and recipient. If we had a sender, we'll update the name and email. Otherwise, that's already going to be in the form. And then we save it. So now let's output a message to the front end. So we'll just do messages, and this is going to be that flash message. So we'll do messages.success here, and we need to pass in request. And after request, we'll just say your message was successfully sent. Okay, so we're just letting the user know everything went good. Now we just want to redirect the user. So we'll just go ahead and do return, redirect. And in this case, we're just going to send the user back to the profile. So we'll just say profile. And we're going to send the user using primary key. So we're passing in the primary key. And we'll just say recipient.id. So when I send somebody a message, I'll be redirected back to their account. So that should do it. So let's go ahead and try this. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and go into the template here, and I'm going to be an unauthenticated user. So I'm actually going to send Dennis a message here. So we'll go ahead and do send message, and I'll just say my name is Steve or something like that. I just think of a plain name, pass in the email. So steve@email.com, and that needs to be .com. And then we'll just say, how are you? And we'll just pass in some data. So we'll just say some content. Okay, so now if I send this, let's see, profile not found, profile is not a valid view function pattern. Where is this at? Oh, okay, so I see what happened. So this is in that redirect. So we call this user-profile. So let's try that one more time. So the message was sent, so it looks like it was in process. So once I refresh that, it looks like that went correctly, but it didn't redirect me. So let me log in as Dennis now. And let me check my inbox. So I have a new message from Steve, and there we go. So if I want to send John a message, so I'm going to send it. We'll test this again. I'll say, hey, John. And then we'll just output some kind of body content. Submit that. I'm redirected to John's account. John will now have a message in his inbox. And if I open up messages here, let's look at hey, John. We can see that we got the string value of my message. So that's why we wanted to run this check right here and actually extract those values. So the last thing I want to do is make sure that a logged in user won't see the option to message themselves. So that can cause some issues. So if I go to developers and I go to Dennis, I'm currently logged in. I don't want to see that right there. So we'll go into my profile page. So we'll go into users, profile, so user-profile. And around this create message button, we'll just add in a condition. So let's go ahead and check this. So we'll just say if request.user.profile, so request.user.profile.id, if the profile ID matches the current profile's ID here, then we want to block it. So we have the user as profile here, so we can just go ahead and access this. We'll do profile.id. So if the logged in user's profile ID doesn't match the profile that we're viewing, that profile's ID, so not equal to, then we can just output this button. Else it's just not going to show up. So we can just do end if. Okay, so I'm logged in as Dennis at this point. If I refresh it, I won't see it. If I go to a different developer's account, I'll go to John Doe. I can send John a message. So I can't see Dennis's, but I can see John. So if I log out, then I can go to Dennis's account and I can see this message as an unauthenticated user. So that's it for this video.